This is Rebel Mom Boss, the podcast for scrappy, rebellious moms who are making things happen while raising their babies. My name is Robyn Flynn, a scrappy, rebellious mom myself, and the founder and managing director of Robyn Flynn Media. I'm also a mom to a beautiful toddler named Peyton. We do things a little bit differently here, so buckle up and welcome to the rebellion. It's tax season here in Canada, and for entrepreneurs, that can be stressful because the last thing you want is to be audited. So I thought, who better to have on the show today than an accountant? Catherine Roe is the founder and CEO of Cowart Roe CPA, a concierge CPA firm, and Cowart Roe Academy, a business management and financial literacy education services provider. She's a certified public accountant and notary public in the state of Louisiana and a QuickBooks ProAdvisor with over 14 years of experience in both public and corporate accounting. Her book, No More 24/7 Entrepreneurs Take Your Life Back, just came out recently. So without further ado, let's welcome Catherine to the Rebellion. Hey, Catherine, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's tax season in the U.S. too, right? That's kind of universal. This is not a fun time for anybody, really. Let's be real. Nobody likes filing their taxes, but I feel like it's especially stressful if you're an entrepreneur, especially if you're a new entrepreneur. And I mean, obviously we don't have to get into specifics because it really depends on your region and where you're located, right, what the rules and regulations are. But is this something that you see in your business, is people who are recent entrepreneurs themselves who are like, oh my God, I don't even know where to start?
Yeah, and a lot of times people start businesses, they don't have a whole lot of guidance on anything that goes into that process, the financial side or other elements. They have a passion for something that they're good at, something that they want to provide, which is what they should be doing, but there's so much more that's involved that you have to kind of just learn on the go. All of a sudden, you're the business owner, you wear all the hats, right? You're in charge of everything. And it can be very, very intimidating for sure.
Yeah, when I first started, when you're a new business owner, especially if you're not investing a ton of capital in your business, you don't necessarily have the money to invest in products for your accounting services at the beginning. I do recommend doing that at some point once you can. But early on, there are tools available to you, right? Like I just used Google Sheets. Like I created a worksheet, basically, Microsoft Excel, whatever. And I just had, a way to track my incoming funds and my outgoing expenses and have a deduction of what was left over at the end of each month. And to me, that was like a simple way to keep track of everything. There are apps you can use to save receipts and stuff. So, just starting your business and not tracking your expenses and not tracking your income, that's a surefire way to get in trouble, right?
Well, I think the most important thing is everybody has a different level of understanding of, how to do, everything. Someone could be really good at a spreadsheet. Another person could just be clueless with it. I think the key is up front, be organized. Don't let yourself get disorganized. Make sure you have all your business activity happening in business accounts. That way, it's easy to sort through. If you get to a place where you need help and you haven't been fully taking care of all that, it's easy, it's concise, it's organized, and that's where the stress relief is going to be. Keeping all the documents together. Anything you get, it's a safe bet to say, save it.
Yeah, and you'd think it'd be easier now that everything's digital. Like I remember our parents' generation when they did their taxes having a shoebox of receipts that were jumbled together from the past year. And I feel like people are doing the digital equivalent of that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but do you just get a dump of folder of stuff that's titled IMG 402, no rhyme or reason to it?
What I always tell people is that it's important to keep your receipts. It's important to save, all your documents in case you get audited. I know you jumped right in with the scary A word. But it's important to make sure you have your backup. But not all the time does the accountant need all of that. A lot of times if you got, good bank statements, you have all your data to support. Because we would spend forever, sorting through all that. As long as you have it, you're good. You've done your due diligence as a taxpayer, you're good. And then we can take care of getting everything organized and in the right place.
I mentioned off the top that you have a book out called No More 24/7
Yes.
Entrepreneurs Take Your Life Back. I love this because I always joke that, I quit my full-time job so that I could work less and spend more time with my daughter, and somehow I ended up working more. I just have a bit more flexibility in terms of my hours, which is nice, but it does feel sometimes like a 24/7 job, especially if you're also a mom, which is also a 24/7 job.
Yes.
So, there's this great line in your book, actually, that I think is applicable to a lot of us. It says, if you find that your week was busy but not productive, then you have a clear sign that you need to change something. And I think that's a really great point, because I found sometimes, especially with the weekends, things would get so crazy and hectic. And at the end of the weekend, I'd be like, what did we even accomplish? There was nothing that we finished. And I feel exhausted and stressed. So to me, that was not a productive weekend. Is this something that you're seeing a lot with women?
One very important thing that I put in the book, and I had to kind of change and reword a few times what I really meant and the whole point I wanted to get across. And I think it was in that same chapter, this idea of, self-evaluation, self-reflection, and it's different stages. There's different elements of it. If you're going to do a quarterly review, you're talking, bigger processes, that type of thing. But I'm a fan of a daily review. And it's not like you sit down at the end of the day. Let's say you happen to have a really long, crazy day. You're not trying to say, okay, what did I do right? What did I do wrong? Because, if you're depressed after a rough day, that's only going to, push you over the edge. Instead, it can be as simple as, have I taken 5 minutes to just sit and think, not look at anything? And it could be that simple. It's not like you have to, grade yourself on life, at the end of the day, but you should take a few minutes. Okay, what do I need right now? Have I taken a step back? Do I need to just lock the door of the bathroom so nobody comes in? Because we all know everybody comes in.
Yeah, especially if you're a mom.
All these people that say if you have kids and a dog, you'll never be alone in the bathroom again. I don't know what's wrong with it. Maybe they don't have locks. Because sometimes you just got to lock the door. Just a couple minutes and you're good.
Okay, but I don't know
Nobody's
what's more
coming
stressful. Having my daughter and my dog in the bathroom with me while I'm trying to go pee, or having my dog barking and my daughter screaming on the other side of the locked door while I'm trying to go pee. So it's almost like you have to pick your chaos, right?
It depends. It depends on the day. Yeah. Or you're wondering, what's, being colored.
I will say, Mr. Clean Magic Eraser, not a sponsor of the show, but excellent for removing crayon on the walls, as I've discovered. Little mom hack for you. And get the kids to do it. Whenever my daughter, she's only done it twice, but when she's colored on the walls, I'm like, here, you have to go clean that up now. Yeah, I find in general, moms and then entrepreneurs, we have a hard time saying no. I think it's a little bit easier to say no when you're collecting a paycheck every 2 weeks and it's not your business. But when it's your business and your livelihood depends on it, and if you don't, meet your deliverables or whatever, you could lose that client and a huge portion of your monthly income. There seems to be a bit more pressure, and finding that time for yourself is really important. I follow this great woman on Instagram named Shannon McKinstry. She's a social media sort of strategist that I absolutely adore. And she posted this thing recently about how one day a week, usually Thursdays, is her business day, where she doesn't do any client work. She doesn't take any client calls. She usually gets out of the home office and she focuses on her business, because I think that's something that we tend to forget about a lot of the time, is our own business needs nurturing as well, right?
Right.
Now, is that something that you wear a lot of hats. Like, you're working on your PhD, you're the founder and CEO of your own accounting firm. Like, you've got a lot going on. How are you able to sort of carve that space out for yourself?
Scheduling it. And there's a lot of things that seem like really simple. There's a lot of things that we're just like, well, okay, duh, obviously that's what you need to do. But it's not like really that obvious or easy. You have to make the effort. And if you have to schedule space on your calendar, if you're struggling to make that happen and you're over committing, over scheduling yourself, then, if something comes up, then you're not going to have that flexibility to be able to adjust, and you'll get stressed out. Making that extra effort, it's not embarrassing. I used to think it was embarrassing. I'm like, not going to put space on there. Or, I was forgetting to read my Bible. I'm like, I'm not going to put read Bible in the calendar like I'm some person that can't figure out I need to read my Bible. Stuff like that. It's like, it could be just be alone. You can put it in the calendar if that's what you need, and just make sure that, you're doing these things that are important to you, taking care of everything, mentally, spiritually, physically, all of it. Because, and you mentioned like with women, it's a part of our nature. We are nurturing, we are caring, especially if you're working in a service-based industry and you have a passion for what you're doing. You want to serve and you want to help people, but that's been turned into this negative stereotype where people think that they just keep pushing, that you're just going to be a pushover, and you have to learn how to stand up for yourself without like, oh, she's bad.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there is a little bit of the onus on, those of us who are paying for services as well. So the clientele, to realize you're not the only client. It may seem like, oh, I'm just going to chat with you off hours for 2 minutes about this one thing. But if you're one of a dozen clients and everybody is doing that kind of thing, then where's the line? So there does have to be a boundary in place. I make it clear in my onboarding packet and my contracts what my business hours are. And the best way to get in touch with me, if you need an immediate answer, text me. If you need an answer within 12 hours, email me. Not available from this time to this time. Like, I make it very clear. And then that kind of leaves the ball in my court. If somebody texts me, I get to decide whether or not I'm going to respond now, or if I can just worry about it tomorrow. And it's funny that you mentioned scheduling things and writing out, carving out that space for things. I have a terrible memory. So like if I read a text and don't respond immediately, it never existed to me after that.
Yeah, it'll be gone.
Yeah. So I literally will put a note in my like project management software being like, answer Susan's email, and like schedule it for tomorrow, because I'm that bad. Like, I don't know about you, but I get like a zillion emails a day. So by the time the next day rolls around, that's at the bottom of my inbox. It's gone. It's out of my brain. So I'm curious if what sort of tools or tricks you found have worked for you to be able to create those boundaries.
Well, as far as communication goes, I mean, there's text and then there's email. Email is one thing that's easier because at least it's still like in there in the inbox. Every message is its own thing. And we've got a folder system where, we're able to just sort things and things go to different urgencies, all that. Text messages are a different thing. I don't text clients. I don't do any of that. Like, my business line goes to the same phone. It's like one phone, but it's divided. So like I can see, and we tell people text messages are logistics only. I'm 5 minutes away. I'm parking, that kind of thing. Yeah. Anything important doesn't go in there. And the reason is because a text, it'll just go away. My husband will text me all kinds of things, important things that he wants done during the day. And then he'll be sending me memes and stuff. And then eventually, by the end of the day, I'm like, that's long gone. I don't even know where to scroll back and find that. Like, text messages, not the thing for important things.
Yes, for sure. And you don't want to accidentally text the wrong person the wrong thing, or end up in a group chat, or you never know what could happen, right? So you have to be super careful. I feel like there's a little bit more security that comes with email versus text messages, for sure. Okay, so I do want to talk taxes a little bit, because this is, sort of what's on everybody's mind this time of year. Now, spoiler alert, I have always done my own taxes, which is like, when I tell people that, they're like, but you own a business and you're married and you have, and I'm like, yeah, but I've just always done it that way. But I'm getting to a point now where, my business is getting bigger. I'm looking at starting a second business. I'm like, I feel like this is suddenly no longer within my scope of what, the little software you can download to help you do your taxes can help me with. So, at what point would you recommend somebody seek assistance with filing their taxes? I mean, I know you're an accountant, so you would probably say everybody should be asking for help for filing their taxes. But I'm curious, is there a point where it becomes, a risk to do it yourself?
There are some small business owners that are savvy in that sense, and you've got small business. It's still relatively simple in that aspect that can handle it. A lot of people can't. What I usually tell people is, if you have, any kind of self-employed activity, you should have some level of assistance. And, the level of that, it kind of depends, on where you're at, where you are in your growth strategy and all that. And we have different plans that are tailored that go from a quarterly review of client puts everything in the spreadsheet and we get it all sorted and give advice. That's the bare minimum where, they don't need, full accounting, financial statements every month type deal, all the way to the outsourced CFO accounting department client. So it's a range, and there's different services that, people can have. But I'm more than happy to tell people they just have like one employer, they're not self-employed, that they should be able to do, self-prepared and, the software if they feel comfortable with it. I'm not going to push somebody for, our services for stuff that's more complex just to take somebody on if they really seem like they could do it themselves.
For sure. That makes a lot of sense. I feel like also one of the advantages of working with a professional is you're not leaving money on the table. They may be aware of tax credits and things like that can actually help save you money that you may not be aware of. So that's obviously a benefit as well, right?
And that's a part of having that full year-round service where that's important, because you can make those decisions ahead of time before the end of the year, before it's too late, when you realize, oh, you could have done this, but, we're, after the end of the year at this point, not really too much you can do. So that's why it's good to have some kind of plan, even if the plan is you pay X amount a quarter to get advice, and then just be able to have that set up. Know you can ask questions, all of that.
For sure. What's the biggest mistake you see people making?
Biggest mistake? One would be just not realizing that you need to be paying in regularly, evenly throughout the year, and just realizing that all of a sudden you're responsible for more taxes because you're self-employed and you didn't factor that in or, leave savings for that. That's the toughest thing that I see with folks. They're after their first year. And a lot of times, even early on like that, people aren't paying themselves up front anyway. So they're not even paying themselves yet. And it's a mess.
Yeah.
That early on advice is key.
Yeah. Basically, if you're starting a business, if you're an entrepreneur, you should consult with a professional financial expert who can help you, at the very least, set you up for success. Yeah. Right? Just to make sure you're doing everything correctly. There's a lot of tools out there on the internet that say they can replace an accountant or a financial analyst or an expert or whatever. But at the end of the day, nothing really replaces the advice and expertise of a human being in a world where everything is changing on the daily. I feel like the rules.
People should always upfront meet with an accountant, a financial advisor, and a lawyer, just to have these professionals in your court, so that if you need something, you've already made that connection. And if you need something else, usually those three are going to be able to get you some good referrals. So having that in place at the beginning, you don't even need to hire them for big projects. Just set up the relationship, because that's really what it is.
That's great advice, especially I remember early on, so I do a lot of podcast production, and I had a client where somebody else had the same podcast name, which is not uncommon, but they had trademarked the name, so there was a cease and desist. It was a whole thing. And then I found myself scrambling to find a trademark attorney. I didn't have that relationship prior, but now I have that relationship. Yeah. So now I have a little bit more knowledge and know-how for future clients, and should anything arise, I have somebody that I can reach out to. So yeah, that's really, really great advice, actually.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so your book that I mentioned, No More 24/7 Entrepreneurs Take Your Life Pack, where do people go to purchase a copy?
Amazon. It's available on Amazon in paperback and also Kindle. We will be working on audiobook in the future. But right now, those are the two available options, and that's the best place to go.
You can find Catherine Roe on her website at CowardRoeAcademy.com. She offers personalized one-on-one coaching as well as self-guided courses. You can also follow her on Instagram at Cowart Roe. Thank you so much for being here, Catherine. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
If you like what you heard today, make sure you follow and subscribe to Rebel Mom Boss with Robyn Flynn wherever you get your podcasts. Oh, and make sure to leave a review because that's how other moms will find the podcast too. Until next week.